Topic is NFT Marketing Blueprint, how to brand, network, and sell more. It's a great topic. It's a very untapped topic. Not a lot of people understand how to do it. So we're gonna try to create or present to you the framework to do it. Try to dissect it. Uh, my name is Hans City. X, you can to the next profile. Yeah, so I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I'm experimenting with crypto and art. And I'm also interested in Web3 landscape as a whole. Like to talk about it, like to build on it. So that's me.
Hi everyone, my name's XP. I'm also an artist, usually focusing on one art. I do also collect a lot of NFTs myself. In terms of actual success with my art, I've had varying levels of success, especially with my collection on Tezos, which is currently sold out. So yeah, hopefully we can bring some of that insight as well into this talk and give you some value.
Absolutely. So we're gonna start from the three P's. I understand that this looks like kind of like a very generic thing, but this is very uh, crypto specific or NFT specific. Uh, Personally, I've noticed and I've had multiple discussions with my friends who have sold out, who have been doing really well in sales, including XP, and all of them somehow end up on these three P's. So just to make it a little bit formulaic and for everyone to remember it, we kind of created this framework. And of course, you can call people something like communication, or you can call presence such as showing up. So you can definitely change the wordings of it. But these are the things that we're going to be discussing on top of how to end up being successful in the NFT space as an artist. The very first P is called production, and we're going to start from that. So, by production, what we mean is initially, you need to keep creating work. That's the first important thing. And that's the biggest caveat a newer artist would make when they join the NFT space. They would mint one art piece and they would try to wait it out until it sells, or they would try to market the same thing over and over again without realizing that artists are called artists because they create art. So the very first thing and the very basic rule, which a lot of people surprisingly forget, is to keep creating something new, keep presenting your art out there, keep making stuff and keep just shipping them out. Like Eric said in the chat, real artists ship. That is true, and a lot of people just miss that. So one of the descriptions that we wrote is Picasso made 50,000 paintings, and Vincent Van Gogh, which whose painting number is kind of very relatively low, that's 902. So these are the individuals who are renowned, and even they made so many paintings, even though any Picasso could be sold out, but they still made a lot of paintings. So the first thing is to keep creating, keep putting things out there, and that actually gives you a reason to just show up and talk about your art. That's the only thing that you can do in your personal capacity. And if you have newer stuff to talk about, you will never run out of things to talk about. So that's the very first rule. The second one, XP will explain.
Yeah, so in terms of production as well, just like Hansi said, I think, just keep making. I think one of the problems, like Hansi said, is that people make stuff and they wait for sales. If we could tell you anything, like don't wait for sales if you're gonna do this. Like think long term, make something, put it up for sale, and just make more, right? This is an example we like to mention a lot is Xcopy, who's one of the biggest NFT artists in the world right now. When he started out, like 3 or 4 years ago, he could not sell his work for $5. Like people were not buying his stuff, and it was $5. Nowadays, his stuff sells for millions, right? 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. But back then, he couldn't even sell stuff for $5. But what he did is he just left it up there, carried on making, and carried on making, and that's something you see that is quite consistent with a lot of artists that have become successful. And to if we talk about, so those are individual artists. If we talk about actual collections as well, you can continue creating, and you might think, wait, if it's a 10K PFP project, how do I carry on creating? You can't create more PFPs, can you? Because it's a 10K limit. Well, you can create other stuff. You can create metaverse items, right? If your collection hasn't sold out, just keep building, create a community, create items, create other like airdrops, work on the airdrop, maybe, make it a really amazing one. There's all sorts of other things you can keep on building.
Yeah, so presence is very important. We're going to touch upon how to be present in the next slide, but the basic premise of this is that if you do not keep showing up on other people's feed, that kind of means that you do not exist. A lot of people think that if their work is really good, then you don't have to market it or you don't have to talk about it. And that is something that a lot of newer artists who in the space struggle with. They believe that their work speaks for itself and you don't need to talk about it more to get more eyeballs. And sometimes they think that if their work doesn't get recognition or it doesn't get sold out, that kind of means that the quality of the work is somehow kind of low or they're not good enough. And it's almost always the case of less presence. uh, the idea is, or the basic truth is that our feeds are full of a bunch of stuff. Like you see something new every second, every 3 seconds, and there are a lot of people posting stuff. So no matter how good you are, you only get 3 seconds, and if those pass by, then your work of art just gets hidden or slid under a lot of tweets or a lot of Instagram posts. So the idea is to keep talking about your stuff and keep your presence high. Just keep talking about your art in multiple ways, showing up and just talking about how you went through. And we're going to talk about multiple processes on how to do this. But one of the key strategies of a lot of artists is to talk about behind the scenes. Like if they have one art piece that is coming on a specific date, they talk about the process that went behind that piece. They talk about the feelings that they were feeling when they were creating that piece. They talk about the technicalities behind the piece. They talk about why they did certain things in that certain piece, and they move on from there. They tease you. They give out trailers. They just kind of keep talking about the same thing over and over again, and that also builds hype towards the end product. And also, people are interested in knowing how an artist or how anyone creates something that is nice looking, that is good looking at the end. So just being there and talking about your art behind the scene, interacting with a lot of people, gives you a very good edge into your work. And it gives you more and more opportunities for your work to be recognized. You can just make one final product, you can push it out, and some people might not notice it and it just goes back. And you share it again, the same thing. You kind of feel a little tedious because you have already shared it. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you stop doing it. Instead of taking this route, the moment you pick up your pencil or your iPad pen or your mouse is the moment you start posting or talking about that art piece. And you can go through an entire journey and keep your entire feed alive by just taking everyone behind the scenes of the process. Another way for presence before I give the floor to X is to interact with other people generally. Like you generally have to be a human being and talk to other people, not about your work, but about anything and everything that they want to talk about. You have to understand that if someone comes to you and they keep talking about their stuff, you might not be as interested as if they come to you and they talk about your stuff, and then you'd be curious to know more about them. And you can have this, and this is a real life phenomenon. It does not like limit itself to Twitter or just NFTs. If you show interest in other people's work, in other people's lives, they tend to return the favor and they show interest in your stuff. I've seen a lot of newer artists just go onto Twitter or Instagram and just talk about their stuff over and over again. And in the beginning, at least, not everyone care. Very less people care. and the people who would actually care are the people that you care about personally. So it's equally important to talk about not your work, but other people's work, other people's ambition, other people's ideas, than just your stuff. And I think there's a very good 50-50 balance, or even in the start, it should be like 70% other people's stuff and 30% of your own stuff, so that people have the reason to be interested in your stuff in the first place. You have to win that engagement or that interest by showing interest first. So that's basic primer on presence.
Yeah. And like Twitter is at the moment anyway the home of NFTs. So, you really need to be on Twitter. And I know sometimes when I talk to people, they say, Twitter's a bit confusing and whatnot. And even I myself, to be honest, like maybe 2 years ago, I was not using Twitter because I found it confusing. But it's one of those things, once you dive into it and you start using it, you kind of understand it, and it gets better over time. One thing I would say as well is, like Hamza said, just Hansi said, you just keep keep engagement up, like just keep engaging with people. Maybe avoid shield threads. Shield threads are what's known as, like, people say drop your art and I'll buy your art. Majority of the times it's fake, right? They're not buying any art, they're just doing that because they want followers, they want likes. Avoid those, unless it's somebody reputable, somebody that is already out there collecting. Then it's maybe a bit different, but usually just engage with people talking about their work, talking about other stuff. A lot of times, what we call like joke posting on Twitter. Just by joke posting, you can build a following, and then from that following, you get people buying your art. It's a bit weird, but it definitely works. One thing I would say is, like, you have no idea who's watching you on Twitter. So with even some of my pieces that I've sold, they've sold to prominent collectors. I had no idea how they found me, right? And then I find out that they've just been watching me on Twitter. They might not interact with you, but they'll still kind of watch you, right? You have no idea who's watching. You just have to keep the engagement up. And what collectors want to see is they want to see you showing up every day. They want to see you interacting with other artists and constantly making. If you're making a post, like, every 2 days or one day, that you're working on this, you show a bit of preview, that shows that you're in it, seriously. Sometimes you might be working on stuff, but you're not showing people. Like, why not just show some progress, mention some progress? It goes a long way. And one last thing I want to say about Twitter as well is, early on when I started out, which was like a year ago now, I guess. One thing I did is I started messaging a lot of these collectors and other artists on Twitter for advice, which went a long way and really helped me out. If you see somebody out there who's got their DMs open, it usually means they're okay for you to message them. Don't message them your artwork and sell. Like, ask for advice, maybe specific advice. Like, if it's a certain collector that you see they're collecting in a certain way, maybe you want to know why. Ask them. I did stuff like that. I talked about royalties. I asked collectors, what they look for when they collect, any advice, all of those things. If their DM's open, you can DM them, and based on their following, they might reply to you a bit later, but that's fine. Just send out that DM, ask questions.
Absolutely. I think to sum the thing up, I think you need to be a human being. And just imagine someone just coming to you, a human being, an actual person, and just talking about their stuff. How would you feel if someone you meet, every time that you meet, just talk about their stuff? And think about someone you really like, and you might know that there are people who genuinely show interest in your stuff. They're kind of funny, they make jokes, they're kind of easygoing, and they're skillful, they're helpful. So everything that you see in a human being uh doing, that you genuinely like and you gravitate towards that person, just imitate that on Twitter. Maybe I've seen a lot of people who are really cool in real life, but they kind of do not emulate that on Twitter or on social media. And I just tell them to start doing whatever they're doing in real life, and that would take them a long way. So when we talk about presence, you might have seen us talked about Twitter a lot. And the reason for that is that not exclusively, but if you're not on Twitter, you're kind of not into NFTs. It's kind of that sort of thing because most collectors, most projects, most communities, most artists, all of them just exclusively use Twitter, and they use other platforms as kind of like a cross platform posting kind of thing. Like they just post whatever they're doing on Twitter to other platforms and vice versa. But Twitter is actually the place to be. It used to be Clubhouse before because of audio channels, but thanks to Twitter Spaces, which is equally important for us to talk about our work, you're engaging, you're interacting with people in a voice channel rather than just tweets. And that makes you just, take a platform where the other people are just listening to what you have to say about your art. So it used to be Clubhouse too, but ever since Twitter Spaces came along, it became Twitter. So as an artist, you need to be present on Twitter. You need to be present on Twitter Spaces. You need to tweet about your stuff, but you also need to reply and comment under other people's work, talking about what they feel, talking about what you think about their work. And then there's Discord. So Discord is like, there are servers that acts as a group and you can just interact with other people. And then there are subgroups inside a group called the channels inside a particular server. And what Discord does is that it makes the community stronger. There's an announcement channel where all the important updates are being given by projects and artists about their work. There's a normal chat place on Discord where you exclusively, as a community of a project or of an artist, just talk together and kind of form bonds and a bunch of stuff. There are giveaways going on. There's just a very tight knit community aspect to Discord. So what projects and artists do is that they cold target people. They generally talk about stuff publicly on Twitter, and then they try to build an audience in their Discord because that's more intimate, that's more closer, that's more genuine, that's more authentic. So they build cold communities on Twitter, they transfer them to Discord, and then, it results into everyone being a part of a community and making things very strong. What are some Twitter Space or Discord channels to join to just get a feel of how it's like? I couldn't say there are specific ones because there are the thing about NFT Twitter is that if something becomes too mainstream, it kind of becomes spammy. So generally, there are subgroups. There's a DAOGEN Discord as well. We do Twitter Spaces as well. There are a bunch of places. I think I can mention the resources at the very end. The things, the servers and the spaces that I personally like, I can mention that and I can link to them. But the idea is to explore, look into things that personally interest you and kind of get the feel of it. And
The
then, yeah,
the best way to do it is to find spaces is start following. So once you dive into Twitter, like start following the artists and collectors and whatnot that you like. And once you start following them, their spaces will start showing up on your, the algorithm will do its work and their spaces will start showing up on the spaces tab on the app. And then you can start just join, it doesn't really hurt or cost anything to join. Just start joining stuff. Listen, if you get a good vibe for it, join again to the same one. If not, leave it, find another one. And you kind of have to keep rotating because everyone's kind of different and everyone has different styles. Maybe you like a mellow, slower spaces. Maybe you like a upbeat space. Everyone's different. And, none of them are bad necessarily, right? They all deliver different value. Sorry, answer your code.
absolutely. I agree. And the thing about Web3 and NFTs is that there's no one single resource. And if there is a one single resource, that kind of becomes obsolete because when you talk about alpha or when you talk about getting information before everyone, that is kind of an exclusive thing. And if 1 million people are getting the alpha, that's not really an alpha because not 1 million people know about it. So the thing about Twitter Spaces and Discord is that every single time something becomes mainstream and something becomes really popular, that kind of becomes obsolete and you kind of have to restart the process. So my advice would be just to be there, just to explore, just to see what's going on. And you're going to be changing those channels, those Discord servers quite often. And yeah, you might find something that you like based on your personal interest. The final thing that I'd like to mention, it's a bit of an advanced technique, but a lot of people use it very successfully. That is having your own dedicated website. I think when you talk about collectors or when you talk about your position as an artist or as a project, there is a lot of effort that goes into making yourself credible, making yourself stand out from the crowd, and having your own domain and having your own space to talk about your stuff in a better way always goes a long way. At the end of the day, Twitter and Discord are not independent platforms. They're companies that you rely on to talk about your work. So having a website makes you have the ultimate control over what you need to talk about. How long is it going to be? If there are going to be any visuals or not. If there's a new announcement or something. So having your own website makes it uh, amazingly effective for a lot of projects and a lot of artists as well. And I definitely recommend having your own website just to not rely on other platforms. And there will be a lot of collectors who would appreciate the fact that you're putting in the money, the resource, and the effort to creating something outside of a platform that you do not own.
Yeah. So Twitter, obviously we can talk about Twitter forever, to be honest. It is literally the home of NFTs at the moment. Whether you sell on Tezos or Ethereum or Solana, it doesn't really matter. Like, or whether you sell on OpenSea or Rarible, everyone kind of merges into Twitter. So Twitter's very important. We can't emphasize that enough. Discord is important once you start getting into Twitter and then you find the communities you like, then it's kind of like Discord's like the sub app that you need to use. Discord, like I mentioned with Twitter, Twitter was I found quite difficult. Discord is a nightmare. Let's be honest; it's so hard to navigate Discord. But it's just one of those things. Like you can get used to it if you just keep. Once you get used, once you use it, you'll kind of understand it. Like I still feel so old when I use Discord because I don't understand it because my nieces and nephews, they're like, that's what they use. Like this is what the kids use basically. That's their MSN or whatever we were using back in the days. Um, and yeah, website is extremely important. Like even just having your URL, shows the level of commitment you're in as well. Like me having xp.com, like having that on my Twitter under my website banner, like for a collector, that instantly also, is like, it's one of those, it's something that's so small, but it goes a long way. Even my website right now, I don't really, because I had to close it down because I'm gonna remake it because I wasn't too happy with how it was. But at least just having that URL there, even if it doesn't work, just the value of the URL is still there, and it's quite important.
All right, so this slide is very important and it goes back to the presence phase. I think we have covered most of this, so gonna breeze through this. I think a lot of people just are unable to realize that collectors and people who buy your work are real human beings and they operate like every other human being. Personally, I've had the privilege to be collected by a lot of friends or a lot of people who collected and then became my friends. And that's how you need to be operating as an artist. Uh, you need to understand that you are a person and you need to act like a person and you need to realize that the person who's collecting you is also a person and you need to talk to them and interact to them in a humanly way rather than just looking at them as buying machines. A lot of people just talk to collectors just so they could buy their work, and that is, I think that's not a good long term strategy because you can you can try to form relationships with people who get inspired by your art, and that kind of makes them get more invested into your art in the long term rather than just pushing something in the heat of the moment, and when they buy it, you have no communication or no interaction with them. That kind of makes your work lose long-term value. And for most artists, the real money, the real life-changing money is on the secondary market. Like after you have sold something to someone, then you're building value of that piece for the collector that have bought it. So you need to, act as a human being and treat people like human beings, and you'd understand and you'd realize how things would kind of just change for you. Because I've had the unfortunate experience of just initially going into it and thinking that collectors are some sort of superhumans who just like to collect and stuff, and they're not actual human beings. And that kind of hurt me in a way that I dehumanized a lot of them in the very early days, and I kind of realized that this is not how things work. So this is a very important mindset to keep at least at the start.
Yeah, just to emphasize as well, like your friends will be your first collectors. Even for myself, a lot of my collection is being sold by, being bought, sorry, by, the people that have become my friends within the space. And it's very important as well to start off somewhere. You know, if you listen to the stories of the NFT space, from when it started, it was just a handful of people in the space here, right? We had just a handful of people that were just buying and selling within themselves, and even they were thinking, "Are we just crazy? Like, this is just maybe not going anywhere. It's just us, like in a circle, just buying and selling each other." And even they didn't know that it would spawn into what it is today. But it all has to start somewhere, and so friends are a great way to start. Um, Another thing I would say is, yeah, to emphasize what Hansi said about collectors are just people. I still have plenty of collectors I talk to, like I said before about the DMs. I still talk to a lot of these collectors in the DMs that have never bought my stuff, which is fine because maybe they're not into my work, which is something you have to be okay with as well. Like, but we still talk. We're still close friends. I would like to say, which sounds so weird because these are people I've never met. We've only talked online. A lot of them I've never even seen their faces. They haven't even seen my face, but we have become close friends. Sometimes just making those friends as well, and there might be value in other ways as well, like some of the connections they have, advice, obviously, like these are people that I can now actually turn to, which is very valuable. Um, and one last thing I want to say about people is find if you can find like one, two, three people that really believe in your work, right? Where you can get through to them and you explain what you're trying to build here, and you can, get them to believe in you just as much as you believe in yourself, of your long-term vision, of your art, and they really love you. If you can find those three people, then there's most likely 3 million people out there as well that would feel the same way. And it's just a matter of multiplying that three. Just multiply those three people, get your exposure out there. So you find another three people. So now you have six, and just keep multiplying that. So then you have 12. And then, you'd be surprised at how quick that can multiply as well if you have the right project and have the right ideas. So yeah, start small. Like, I think we're very spoiled nowadays where we think we're gonna just become superstars like overnight. That's not the reality. Anybody that's become big, like we don't see it, but they've struggled a long time. And it was a game of multiples. They all started small and just they multiplied it over time.
All right, so there's no wrong answers in the next two slides. So instead of just telling everyone of what to do, I'm gonna talk about how to think about these things. So we have covered Ethereum in our first presentation, in our first session, and in the second one we've talked about Tezos as a platform, and you can either choose both. You can either choose Ethereum, you can choose either one of them, both in however manner you like. There are no wrong answers. But personally, I think along these lines. The first thing is understanding how your art would be distributed in terms of supply and demand. Object or anything that is based on Tezos generally have pieces that are higher in edition count. Like there are 100 copies of the same piece, like there are 100 editions or there are 1,000 editions, and every single edition is affordable or low priced so that it can be collected by a lot of people. Now, the same thing can happen on Ethereum. Like, you can obviously set up 1,000 edition thing on Ethereum, but generally that is being done on Object because I don't know, the low gas fee, because of the culture that Tezos have started, because there are a bunch of collectors on Tezos who cannot collect for a very large sum of amount, but maybe $12 or $10 or $15 per edition is the correct amount, and that kind of serves them on Tezos. So if you're looking to mint more editions, so you're better off starting from Tezos. And a good thing about a few advantages of starting out from Tezos is that even if your art isn't perfect, even if your art isn't amazing, I briefly touched upon this in the past session as well. If someone likes your stuff enough, they're gonna pay. They're gonna they're willing to pay $10 to $12 rather than pay a lot more on the Ethereum chain. So initially, you get a bunch of sales on Tezos like much easier, much quicker than Ethereum itself. So it kind of boosts yourself starting out because you're selling pieces initially. And if someone is buying your piece, irrespective of the price, that kind of gives you a boost of entrusting yourself as an artist whose art people might want to buy. Because a lot of people just think, who's going to buy my art? I don't think anyone is going to buy my art. So to challenge this notion in your head, Tezos is a very good platform because it's cheaper. You can make a lot of additions, so you can kind of make a lot of money. Because although one addition for 3 Tezos, let's suppose, is not a lot of money, but for 1,000 Tezos, that means 3,000 Tezos, and that translates into, I don't know, a lot of, maybe 3 Ethereum or something along that line. So you can make a lot of money on Tezos too, as long as you're pricing it low and as long as more and more editions are being demanded by audiences, and that is highly possible. So for new artists, I think Tezos is the way to go. Of course, Ethereum is where all the big collectors are. A lot of big collectors are exclusively on Ethereum. They're kind of very dedicated to one chain. They do not, move chains. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. So every big artist has to be on Ethereum in order to make bigger sales, in order to target bigger collectors. So you eventually do end up on Ethereum. So Ethereum is also, one of the good places to be. I think since everything is so expensive in terms of gas, you have to really show collectors that you have a very big potential as an artist in the future, and they're kind of investing in it. I've mentioned this before. A lot of people who buy art on Ethereum always consider it as kind of an investment that would give them a return sometimes in the future. And that does not happen on Tezos a lot often. Like it totally does. But there are a lot of people who say, I'm just buying this for the art on Tezos rather than on Ethereum. So, you can start off on Tezos and you can slowly build an audience, and then you can start dropping one of ones on Ethereum blockchain. I think all of it comes down to the notion of supply and demand. If you have two people who want to buy your stuff and you only release one thing, then you're going to be sold out, even if there are just two people in the world who want to buy your stuff. So as long as you're understanding how many people want to collect your work and you're putting it out there, then I think you should be good. And that's why Tezos is so good, because you kind of know how many people are interested in your work. So that's what I think of X.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Tezos statement as well. I think Tezos is a great way to start. I think eventually we're going to be cross-chain anyway. We're so early right now where it feels like everything's kind of in different places, but eventually it's all going to end up in one place. At least that's what I believe. So, in the future, it might not matter whether you start on Tezos and Ethereum, but Tezos is a great way to start. Um, One thing I would like to emphasize is minting on your own contract is very important. If you want to take this seriously, research on how to mint on your own contract. Manifold is a company that lets you mint on your own contract. If you're minting on Tezos and you're using object.com, then the only way to mint is on your own contract. That's the only way they allow you to mint, which is great, which means you're always going to be in control of your contract. Um, Luxware is a new platform. They don't really have a minting uh, uh, what do you call a feature yet, but you can mint on your own contract on Manifold and then import into Luxware. OpenSea, of course, allows all contracts that are minted on your own. And the reason you want to mint on your own contract is because you might have problems like OpenSea is great if you want to do free mints, if you want to start out. But then not too long ago, they decided where they're not going to allow anybody to mint any more than 50, which causes a big problem, and when you're under under their contract, you don't have a choice but to follow it. That's why minting on your own contract is quite important. Um, Another thing I'd like to say is like super rare foundation, especially super rare. These are like very niche invite only platforms where you can only get in if they allow you. With foundation, you have to find an invite. Don't get too bogged down with trying to get on these platforms. A lot of things that happen, a lot of times when artists start, they want to get on these platforms and they kind of get desperate to get on these platforms. Like, I'm not an artist unless I'm on one of these platforms, which is not true. You can be a successful artist on any of these platforms. There are people that are only minting on Tezos, like John Carell, who have insane success. You can make your own success. This is the beauty of NFTs, right? We're not like bound by one platform. We're not bound by one ecosystem or blockchain. We can make our own kind of success. So don't get too bogged down by like trying to be on one platform or being focused, unless that's your style. You want to just be on one. Also, lastly, depending on what you're selling, try to find the platform that suits it the best. Like OpenSea, we know has the most PFP projects out there. Um, like Hansi said, Tezos, like object.com, there's a lot more of an art kind of niche going on there. Obviously, if you can apply to Super Rare or get on Foundation through an invite, we're talking about one of one art on those platforms that do quite well. So try and find like the platform that suits your style and what you're doing.
Absolutely. And once you start browsing on Twitter, you might notice that there are a lot of platforms that you didn't know before, and a lot of artists would be minting there. So be open to understanding newer platforms. And if you see some artists minting or talking about their work on a specific platform that you don't know, try to explore that as well. So yeah, that is a basic foundation on platforms. And the second thing is important to talk about a primer and pricing your work. This, like the previous slide, has no wrong answers. There are artists who started out by insanely pricing their work, and that was successful. There are artists who started out by putting a very low price tag on their work, and that worked too. So we're focused on talking about the mindset on pricing your work. Personally, I think pricing should vary amongst different phases of your career. In at the very start, I think it's very important to not make a lot of money, but make a lot of collectors. This is my personal opinion. I feel that the more people who have your work, they're gonna be more willing to be a part of that community, that small family that you're building through your work. And if someone collects you, they already have a special place in their hearts about you, and you have a special place in your heart about them. And through that, you can kind of expand and grow into getting to more and more people. So if someone has collected you, there's a greater chance that not only they're going to look at your future work, but they're also going to be prone to share your work and talk about it amongst their peers, especially when they show like, this is the new piece that I've collected from this person. So I think initially it's more important to have a lot of diverse collectors from multiple areas who really like your work rather than pricing it at a point that very less people can afford it. And this goes back to us producing a lot of art. So if you're making a lot of art and if your art is not that pricey, if your art is priced at a lower point and you're focused on getting more and more collectors, that kind of gives you a very strong position long term because you're producing new art every single day. You're selling it every single time because you're priced it low, and then you're growing into an artist whose work is more needed. X is gonna expand this to talk about how Beeple does this. He's one of the most successful NFT artists, and he does this in a really special way. But to just strategizing in a way that you have a lower cost addition, you have a lower cost collection that costs very less, and then you have a higher cost collection that costs a lot, contrasts really well because you're targeting people who can afford a very high price thing, but you're also not pricing yourself down by only selling your work for low. So initially, I think it's a very effective strategy to sell your work for a relatively low price. Of course, you shouldn't be underpricing your work at any cost. It's not nice to not get the value that you're getting, but I also believe that uh, value is subjective and it's based on perception. And the more you grow and the more collectors you have, the perception of the value of your piece would start growing. And initially, no matter how great your painting is, your art is, if you're unknown, then the value is relatively lower. So I think focus on pricing your work low initially and then slowly throw out additions that are more expensive. You can do this by maybe doing 50 Tezos piece in a month and doing just one Ethereum platform piece in a month. So you're selling very cheap pieces on Tezos every month, and then you do one of one piece that only has one edition on Ethereum, and that is priced high. So what you're doing is you're targeting both collectors, the people who like to only collect your premium work, and they're not interested in your lower tier work, but you're
Hello. I think we lost Hansi. Yeah. I'd just like to emphasize as well, like, don't forget royalties. Royalties are very important. So if you think about long term, your royalties might even become your main earner, right? So even if you're pricing your work low now, as you keep building yourself, as you keep making art over time, your art will become more valuable. And then when they sell on the secondary market, sometimes you might even get more from the royalties than you did on your first primary sale. And when you make loads, say you have thousands of pieces out there and the royalties are coming in for all of them, this will accumulate into a lot of money. So royalties are very important. Always think long term and kind of focus on building a presence and building yourself as an artist rather than the pricing. That's how I like to see it anyway. The money will come eventually. And going back to what we said about Xcopy as well, like he was selling his work for $5 early on. Like that's how cheap he was selling his stuff for. And right now, if you get an Xcopy piece for $5, like you're laughing because he's built himself to a point where he's $1 million artist, right? So that's on pricing. So this is so we'd like to give like a case study of somebody that's of not just somebody, a few collections and artists that are doing this quite well. So Beeple, I'm sure everyone knows who Beeple is. He's one of the most successful NFT artists in the world. In case you don't know, he's the person that sold his one piece for $69 million dollars. So he's extremely successful. And I think one thing that gets overlooked with Beeple is how good he is on marketing. Beeple is a master marketer. And how he does this is, by doing a lot of interviews on prominent shows. Like, we recently saw him on Jimmy Fallon. He does Joe Rogan's podcast. He does all these different podcasts and shows. He's like constantly out there. Even before this success, he was doing this. he was on. Like you can find these old interviews of him showing up on different shows and talking, and he has this like really crazy personality that he just puts out there. He is himself, and he just puts himself out there as himself, and even that alone has a big effect on how successful he is. So that's one thing he does. Another thing he does is he taps into the mass market by pricing. So like Han City alluded to before, so Beeple's stuff is expensive. We know they are. Like he's one of the most successful. His pieces are very expensive, but when he does his drops, he kind of tiers the pricing to allow everybody to get in. So he has drops where he has multiple pieces, and some pieces he will make like an auction style, which is where people will auction it up all the way to hundreds of thousands. And the average person like us, we can't really get into it. But then he'll also have some editions that are available for $1, which is crazy, right? To own a Beeple piece for $1. We actually know somebody as well within our DAOGEN group that actually won one of those pieces as well for $1, which is kind of crazy. So he'll do these pieces where he'll have a range of things, and by doing that $1 piece, which you have to win by a raffle as well, which it doesn't make it very easy. Like you have to do questions and kind of go through. It becomes an experience. It's an actually amazing experience as well, if you actually are involved in one of his drops. But by having that $1 entry point as well, the mass market kind of comes in, because who can't afford one for $1? Even if you don't like his work, you will want to buy his piece for $1, knowing how valuable his pieces are. So that's a great way he kind of brings people in as well. And lastly, what I'd like to say about Beeple is, like, sure, a lot of it is luck, right? He kind of got chosen to as the one that got his piece sold for 69 million. And sure, he kind of got chosen on like early on as being like the poster child for NFTs, but he would not be in that position if he didn't make his own luck, right? If he wasn't making a piece every day for 13 years or however long he's done it for, he would never be in the position to be lucky. So sometimes you have to just keep making, keep making, and you just don't know what's going to happen in the future until you actually get there. So keep making. Beeple's a great example of this, where he has constantly made, and he is in the position he is now by making his own luck. So another case study we have is Deadfellas. So I mean, we talk about Deadfellas a lot. It feels like on these presentations, but it's just like that's a testament to how strong the project is as well. We just can't help talking about it. Every time we've actually done these presentations, something new has happened with the Deadfellas as well. It just proves that, like, them building over and over again, like nonstop, has so much value, and it build and gives them like a lot of credibility. So they actually started with a 0.024 mint price, if I'm not mistaken, which is extremely low for a project, especially when you think about the floor now, which is at around 3 Ethereum, and at its highest, it went to 5 Ethereum. But even Betty herself, which is part of the team, one of the two founders, she mentions how we weren't relying on the initial sale. We were relying on the royalties because we were like confident that we will be bringing so much value that will have a very healthy secondary market. And right now, the amount of money they make from royalties is insane, like on a daily basis, right? Another example would be like Gary V's VeeFriends. I think he mentioned in one of his talks where he was like, he was asleep and he woke up to 250,000 in secondary sales from royalties. So it's very important to like just keep building. Don't focus on pricing too much early on. Like your royalties will hopefully make up for itself if you keep building. So constantly being building, constantly being present, it goes a very, very long way in terms of bringing value to your holders. So that is Deadfellas. The next one is actually one that Matt Kane, who Han City was supposed to talk about, but I think Han City got rugged, as we say in the space. So we might have to skip over this one until he comes back. The last one that I want to talk about is World Wide Web, which is a very interesting case study. World Wide Web is an NFT project that is a game. It's a game that you can play. It's a metaverse game. It's a 2D metaverse game that you can play on your browser. And there's a screenshot example there that you can see where, these are all real people. Um, and, if you have your own kind of project, NFT as well, they kind of show up. So World Wide Web, what they have done is before they dropped the NFTs, they had a working model, right? Which is kind of like a weird thing to say in this space because people usually they make the NFT, they sell out, and then they kind of build. But World Wide Web did it the other way, where they had a prototype model that people could play before they launched their apartment NFTs, which is a great way to do it as well. I think not enough people are utilizing that. So you can build something, just I know two projects right now where they're building amazing games. They're making the 3D metaverse games before launching the NFTs so that when they do launch the NFTs, people will have something that they could actually use and they can already see the value. Like you're already showing the people the value and then they know what they're paying for, right? I bought two apartments on World Wide Web as well because when I played the game, it was like it was like a no-brainer. I just wanted to buy the apartment because like, yo, this is a great game. It's already working. It already proves that the team is building. So why not? Another thing they do that's very important is I can't say that word, interoperability. Very difficult to say that word, which is basically tapping into other people's NFT projects. As you can see on the screen, they have cybercongs there, they have chain punks, I think there. So by owning what somebody else's NFT collection and you go into the game, you now have that avatar in the game, right? And this is completely permissionless. They don't need the permission of cybercons to do this, right? They just need to get the data of the holders and put it in. And now instantly you have a community and a fan base that you're tapping into that, they're going to come and like say there's 10,000 cybercons, which I think there are, maybe 1,000 of them are like, yeah, let me just go into this game and see how I look. There you go. Now you got some free customers. So tap into other communities as well. There's other ways to do it as well, where you can like partner up with other communities. That's a great way to market. Maybe find, even if you can't get to the bigger projects, maybe find another project that's starting out or another project that's on your same level and partner up, right? And tap into other projects. And one thing they do as well, a little GM can go a long way. So almost every day they send out a tweet that just says GM, right? That's all it says. GM means good morning in the NFT space. That's it. They just say GM. And by doing that, they kind of show that, that's presence, right? They're showing like, here we are. It's almost like clocking in for work, right? On my feed, I see it every time without fail. On my homepage, I see that GM. And that kind of like sticks in my mind as well. It reminds me that World Wide Web exists, right? And then maybe I'll go into the game after seeing that GM. Maybe I'll check on the price, right? Just by seeing that GM. So even something as small as a GM every day, like it can go a very long way. Han City, are you able to join as a speaker?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you'd like to talk about Matt Kane very quickly. I think we're running out of time a bit here as well.
Absolutely. So Matt Kane is an artist. He doesn't do profile pictures. He does one-of-one art and different projects. And one thing that I love about Matt Kane is that he create very small videos that I might share in the resource. I'm going to be sending out the resource PDF. So in that, I'm going to be including all the artists that we talk about. And you can see that he talks about his projects through video documentaries. So he create his art pieces and then he create a video documentary where he kind of talks about what the piece means to him, how did it inspire him, and what it means to the collectors. His most recent is called Grazers. So gazers. So people who gaze, people who look into stuff. And gazers basically uh, there are very small patterns of the moon of the lunar year, and how his whole entire theory about the moon being very important in the entire evolution of humanity. So once you look at a piece and then you look at a video documentary made by the artist who talks about in such great detail about their work, a lot of collectors love that, and Matt Kane has a lot of amazing collectors from the space, and his art is renowned because of him talking about these things. So talking about your piece in unique ways is one of the best ways to get attention to your work. And video documentaries is not something that everyone is willing to do. It asks you to create a script. It asks you to come on camera. It asks you to do something beyond your comfort zone for a lot of people. So doing these small little things regarding your work kind of propels the value of it. As previously mentioned, everything is perceived value. There's no real value of abstract stuff. You can pay $1 for something, someone else can pay $1 million for the same thing. So it's all perception. And a great way to build perception and make your work valuable is to talk about it in unique ways that other people are not using. So
Absolutely. I think video goes a long way. Definitely utilize video. There's not enough artists you doing that. I would agree. Um, yeah. So in conclusion, Han City.
yeah, so in conclusion, I think it's very important to just start your journey and not overthink about it. We have mentioned all the amazing tools that we have successfully employed or seen being employed by other projects and other amazing artists. And I think we're still very early in this space. There's room for so many artists, and I think as an artist myself, I haven't seen this amount of diverse art from all over the world ever, and I think it's very important for everyone from every region in the world to share their unique art and sharing their own unique lens through NFTs. I believe before NFTs, we were all accustomed to watching art from a very concentrated, specific areas that kind of made the cut in the galleries or in the on the internet. NFTs has enabled us all, no matter where we're sitting in the world, to just be amazing artists, and it enables collectors to just collect amazing art, and it's not biased towards a certain geographical location, towards a certain race, towards a certain ethnicity, and that is the beauty of NFTs. And I think all of us, everyone who's remotely interested in NFTs or have something to do with the Web3 or crypto, should at least mint something of their own, and follow these strategies to kind of find buyers for it too.
Absolutely. Just start making, I would say, just, start making, start experimenting, get yourself out there. And, you'd be surprised how, like, I've been doing this for 1 year now, and it was like a roller coaster. And I can't believe, like, it went so fast because it's so fun. It's unbelievably fun. Like, if you've ever been artistic in any way, you know, go back into it. Trust me, it's just too much fun. Don't worry about the sales. Just worry about having fun, even if it's something you do as a hobby.